Today I'm talking about something you can buy on Amazon to improve your lens collection for certain cameras. It is the Canon lens adapter for the EF-M to EF and EF-S lenses. If you have no idea what the heck I just said, basically this allows you to fit lenses that don't fit on certain cameras, fit on certain cameras. You can buy this on Amazon by Canon for $200, but I searched around and found a third party that would sell the Canon product new for $165, so you can save a lot of money. There is also something else called the Viltrox Speed Booster which you can get, which is very similar to this, which I'll cover a little bit later. So basically this is an adapter which it's like a step-up ring for cameras and lenses. The way cameras work is they natively adapt a certain kind of lens. For Canon, that would be EF, EF-S, EF-M, and PL mounts are some of the lenses that they have. And if your camera takes EF-S, it can't take EF-M and vice versa. So this video is for people that own Canon mirrorless cameras like the M50 I'm shooting on. This applies to you. So more about this speed booster, you can see me through there. It's actually pretty hefty. It feels like it's worth the $165 I bought it for. It also has zero optical elements, zero glass. You can stick your finger through it because there's nothing there. The big upside to there being zero glass in this adapter is that it won't reduce your image quality at all. If you have an adapter with glass, then it will slightly reduce it, but because of the fact that this simply adapts a lens, you won't lose any image or video quality. Speaking of quality, it's a very sturdy build, very hefty metal, plastics, different materials that makes it seem worth it. So I wouldn't cheap out and buy a third party. I'd say if you want an adapter, get the Canon one because it's gonna work the best. Some of the features here are the fact that on the back and front are little electric elements that help communicate from your camera to the lens to tell it to be able to zoom, focus, and change the aperture automatically. So if you use this, autofocus will still work perfectly fine. And there's also a lens release so that when you attach a lens to this, you can release it very similar to the camera. There are little guides up at the front to let you know exactly where you are supposed to put your lens on. And on the bottom, there is a 1/4 inch thread with a little screw thing. I'm not sure what it does. I haven't actually found use for it, but what you can use this for is if you have a big telephoto or something, and then a camera back here, you can kind of move that center of gravity up and attach this to a tripod instead of the camera. In order to use this, you have to have a Canon EF-M body. You cannot use this if you have an EF-S camera. If you don't have one, you don't need this. Because the back, you can't get an adapter for the adapter. So if you have an EF-S, you don't need this. But if you have something like the M50, then you will want this, because then you can slap this on just like a lens, and then what you can do is you can put a lens on here. So it'll basically, all it does is add length to your lens setup, and that's all it does. So again, what you need to do is remove the covers from the back and the front of this adapter, remove the cover to your camera, slap it on like a lens, slap on an EF lens, and you're set. That's as simple as it gets. It does not get any easier than operating a speed booster. All this talking is making me thirsty. Alright, performance. So with my Canon M50, I have the kit lens, which I don't need an adapter for, but I also own an f2.8 22mm prime lens. I needed this in order to use it on my M50. So when I slapped this on and I turned on the camera, it looked crisp. I did not notice any loss in quality from my prior camera. The autofocus was not different. I could not tell a difference. It was able to focus quickly, pretty much as quickly as it can focus on my hand, to my face, to the speed booster, to my face. It was able to focus that quick. And the aperture was not affected. You press that aperture button, it immediately changes the diaphragm. Let's talk about some of the advantages and disadvantages of getting something like an adapter. English. The biggest advantage is just the freedom it gives you with lenses. The amount of EFM lenses in the Canon selection are not that great. They've been adding to them over the past couple of years, but still, the EFS lens range is just so much bigger. Some of the disadvantages to this, and there are only a couple, is the fact that it makes your setup larger. So my prime lens on my previous camera was a pancake, so it made the camera about that big total, whereas now when I put this on my M50, makes it like that big because of the fact that this takes up quite a bit of space. This is actually as big as the lens. Another downside is, of course, the cost. You're paying $160 to $200 for a piece of metal and plastic. But there are substitutes like the Viltrox Speed Booster, and this costs around $150, and let me explain what it is. One way I put it is it makes your lens faster, and faster doesn't mean better at focusing or anything, it just means it is better in lower light. So this f2.8 would turn into about an f1.8 if I had a speed booster on it, and I'm waving this around. I mean my prime lens. This don't just use that. Another thing a speed booster does is if you have a crop sensor, it tricks it into thinking it's wider. There are different kinds of sensors. A full frame will use the entire circle image that a lens can take. A sensor like what I have on the M50, so the image taken is smaller. What a lens will do on a full frame looks like this. A lens on a cropped sensor will look like that. So when you use a speed booster, it kind of warps the image to make it wider again. So you can make an APS-C sensor like this appear like a full frame sensor. Another advantage is it does the exact same thing as this. It adapts to EFS lenses. So you cannot use a speed booster with EFM, but you can use it with all of the EFS lenses. So it restricts your lens selection a little bit in the EFM area, but it expands it into EFS just like an adapter. It just seems like, why would I buy this, which is $200 and just adapts lenses, when I can buy something for cheaper where it can not only adapt lenses, but give me a blurrier background and a wider angle? It just seems to make sense, doesn't it? And yes, it does, but this is where it gets interesting. There are a couple of disadvantages to getting this speed booster. One, of course, is it's not a Canon product, so it may have trouble connecting from the body to the lens. The quality is very high, but you still might have trouble. It might hunt for focus a little bit more, and the aperture settings might not work quite as well. Just, it's not going to be the same response as a Canon product. There is a glass element, or the piece of glass that warps the image. Because of the fact that light is passing through another object, it's going to make your image softer and less sharp. And that's just gonna happen regardless of what brand it is. If Canon made one, it would be the same issue. So this isn't an issue with the brand, it's an issue with the speed booster. And so this really comes down to a personal decision. If you think that sacrificing a little bit of image quality and maybe a little bit of responsiveness is better than having really good responsiveness, but not a wide angle and lower light performance, then you should probably get the speed booster. I'm gonna go ahead and get a wide angle lens anyway and a low f-stop lens anyway, so just having this adapter works fine for me. So depending on your needs, I can't tell you what to get. You have to decide for yourself. For what it serves its purpose for, this Canon adapter is amazing because there are really not many side effects other than the cost and the size. You can just slap a lens on and now you have access to all of these different images. So I hope you enjoyed this brief, or not brief, it's 15 minutes. So I hope you enjoyed this overview of the Canon adapter and a brief overview of the speed booster. If you have any questions, I'll try my best to answer them, and I'll see you next time on Creative Space. Hopefully with this same setup, because it looks dang good. This is my prime lens, by the way. I probably should have showed it to you, but I completely forgot. Anyway, this goes on here. See ya.